these pellets are perfectly round. Hello, hi. Today we're going to be doing some testing some new bismuths called Superb Bismuth by Agescan International. Now, just going back and talking a little bit about bismuth. Bismuth has been around for over 20 years as an alternative to lead, so it's a non-tox. It's a really good material. It's got a density halfway kind of between steel and lead, so that's very good. It's also very soft, which allows it to be shot in vintage rifles, so there are no really restrictions. And so people have been using it over the last 20 years or so. Now, there's also some limitations with bismuth. One of those, probably the biggest one, happens to be fragmentation. So there's a certain level of fragmentation that occurs upon ignition within the shell itself, as well as after it were to hit, let's say a waterfowl hit a bone or something like that. So manufacturers have tried to address this, and they've taken some steps. The new formulations have like 6% tin is what a lot of manufacturers have been doing, and they've been able to decrease that level of fragmentation. However, based on my tests and others, I still see around 20-25% fragmentation occurring even in these types of mixtures. And really where the negativity of that comes down to is the fact that some of those pellets are losing some of their energy. It's obviously going to impact the pattern that you have when you lose a piece off of it. Obviously, it's not going to be as spherical. So it comes down to energy as well as pattern density. And the other negative thing that many of the manufacturers had with the way that they were manufacturing it is sphericalness of it, or roundness of the pellets. Many of them were oblong, odd shaped. Sometimes when you ordered a size 4, you might have had sizes 2 to 6 all mixed in. Obviously, it's not ideal. At the same time, even with these limitations, bismuth is still considered an excellent material and certainly an upgrade over shooting steel. So along comes Agescan International. Now, this is a company that's been in business for over 20 years, doing different metallurgy. They have contracts with defense departments, medical companies, doing nuclear medicine or equipment for those, and manufacturing, and as well as R&D, as well as obviously shot and ammunition companies. So what they've done is they've actually directly addressed that first biggest issue, which is the fragmentation. So what they've come up with is a new formulation. And this formulation, instead of being 6% tin, is 20% tin. So it's 20% tin and 80% bismuth. Now, what that's really done is that's increased its ability to resist deformation, which is huge, and obviously fragmentation. So what we found is there's essentially no fragmentation, and the level of deformation is drastically reduced as well. And then the other end of it is, here's some pellets. If you'll notice, these pellets are near perfectly round. Look at them, the way they roll, all the same size, which is a huge improvement. So now what you have is you have a pellet flying through the air that's all the same size, that's perfectly round, that's formed less upon ignition, and as well as it's flying through the air, it's intact. So what you end up at the end of the day is a better pattern, longer consistent ranges, and obviously a more efficient longer range load. So what we're going to do here today is we're going to do a couple tests. The first one is we're going to shoot at this target here, and we're going to see how it patterns using a number 5, which is a mid-range duck load. And we're going to go out to about 40 yards with a modified choke. This duck is not, even though it's a mallard, it's probably closer to a teal or a wood duck, so the 5 shot matches up rather well. And then we're going to pull out some of our gel targets, and we're going to shoot BBs and number 3s, kind of covering the spectrum. And we're going to demonstrate and take a look and see what that pellet looks like after it's been fired and shot through the air and into the gel itself. Look how nice that reload is.
Oh.
I think it came out of the factory. Okay, I'm going to take a crack. You guys are ready?
Yeah.
Let's take a look here. So this is a really nice pattern. So this pattern here is number 5s, and what I've used is a modified choke. So I wasn't looking for the tightest choke, but the reason I wanted a reasonable choke for a reasonable distance, something like a teal or a wood duck. And you'll see that here it's got tons of hits here into the vitals. A nice pattern. Look, it's almost covering the whole page, which is really important. And the difference between bismuth and steel. Steel, often to get a good pattern, it's very small. You look at here, we're almost filling the whole paper in regards to our pattern. Very good. And this is at 40 yards with number 5 bismuth. Very impressive. You'll also take a look here. Let's take a look here. Look, do we see any evidence of any fragmentation? I see nothing. Nothing at all. Everything's the same size. Again, huge difference. When you shoot standard bismuth, it's easy to find it. Every fourth or fifth hole is a fragment. Very impressive. Let's go see what we got. Very impressive. Well, they look incredibly round. I don't see any evidence of fragmentation. Look very good. They look almost like they were before we fired them, when I loaded them. Very impressive.